Welcome to Memento Argentum, where remembering the silver screen is a requirement, not a request. I will be your host, E. E. Lin, and allow me to tell you a silly tale. It's the turn of the century, and a recently widowed woman goes in search of her own place to live away from her husband's family, who are, by all accounts, rather overbearing. And by recently, I mean that he died about a year previously. She goes to a real estate agent to find a house to rent in a seaside village. Although he tries to push her in a more appropriate direction, a particular cottage catches her eye. The price is right and sounds like the best size for what she's looking for. Insisting on seeing it, she immediately falls in love with it, even with the revelation that it's haunted. Gull Cottage is a beautiful place, and a simple thing like a ghost won't dissuade her from living there. The ghost is a sea captain, and it takes a while before he warms up to her enough to allow her to stay without problems. When that happens, she's suddenly hit with bankruptcy, and he offers her his biography, written by her because he can't do that anymore, so that she has financial support. By the time she finishes the work, they've formed as strong a connection as one could while falling for a ghost, and there's genuine affection between them. When she takes the manuscript to the publishers, she bumps into a gentleman. He's also an author of children's stories, though, and he strikes up conversation with her once she's done selling her work. There's some flirtation, more from him than her, and when she finally gets on a train to go home, the captain isn't pleased. Clearly, the ghost had followed her. Although he told her that she would find someone more suitable, i.e., alive, he doesn't like how quickly she went and did just that. As her relationship with the man continues to grow, the captain realizes that she has begun to move on, and he shouldn't stand in her way. In one of the most moving scenes in the film, he basically sacrifices himself so that she may have a possible life and future with this living man, and leaves. At this point, I don't want to spoil anything further. The route the movie takes results in one of the grayest endings you're going to find in this time period of film. No pun intended. It isn't necessarily happily ever after, but neither is it an everybody dies ending. It's fitting for this film, and I'd imagine that the filmmakers had to make a case to the studio in order to get it through. The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, this movie right here, was made in 1948. Well, released. It starred Rex Harrison as the captain, Captain Greg, and Jean Tierney as Mrs. Lucy Muir. The third person, the living man, was played by George Sanders. His character's name was Miles Fairley. Now, when the captain disappears from her life, it's the only moment that uses on-screen special effects. Everything else that uses a haunted house gimmick does so either off-screen or practically. I mean, it was 1948. They kind of had to work with what they had. The film was perfectly cast, and the chemistry on screen is wonderfully believable. It was also nice to see a young Natalie Wood playing Tierney's daughter in the film. I forgot how cute she was somehow. I also forgot that she played the role, but when I first started rewatching, I went, is that Natalie Wood? George Sanders plays a smooth talker very well, and watching this made me want to rewatch Disney's animated Jungle Book so I could hear him playing a villain, because I'm sorry, Shere Khan has such a cultured accent. He sounds so gloriously villainous. It makes it fun to watch. I mean, plus the music's great. Rex Harrison plays a rake of a captain, and I thoroughly enjoyed seeing him play off of Tierney's obstinacy about things, very similar to Hepburn and Tracy's interactions in their films. If you need a better example because you don't know that reference, because that is possible, not everyone's seen Tracy and Hepburn go off each other, I would say it's pretty close to Indy and Marion in Raiders of the Lost Ark, with slightly less mean-spirited snark. In all honesty, there may be no perfect, more modern representation because it's such a specific style of comedy from that particular era. May not even translate well for people who don't watch these films often. But for me, it's as good as any back and forth you get from movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, or anything with Robert Downey Jr. in it. It's not the sort of comedy you're going to see in modern films because filmmakers don't think you're interested. And honestly, I found that more enticing. I mean, it is verging on I hate you terribly and then fall in love. It is. Don't get me wrong. However, the arguments aren't angry. They're arguments that turn into discussions, that turn into flirtations, which is something the balance has not kept up with for modern day. So when they start arguments now, it feels like they go, well, it's an argument, so they're just going to fight. This is a very specific type of argument. It's a very specific type of relationship, and I hope other people find it as good as I do. I also recently read the book for the first time. And the reason it was the first time was because I didn't realize it was based off of a book. So I was really interested in getting a hold of it, and luckily, Main Library had it, public library in my city. Now, The Uninvited, previous review, is also based off of a book, but I was not able to get a hold of a copy in time for me to do the review because it wasn't available through the library, and ordering a book through Amazon at this time of year is kind of silly. What I can say about the adaptation is that it's very loyal given the time period. I understood the cuts that they made, and all of the stuff in the film was incredibly close to the book. Although I will say there is one thing. They did cut one thing that I'm not quite sure why they took out. They took out Mrs. Muir's second child. She had two, a boy and a girl. They kept the girl. They got rid of the boy. His name was Cyril. Now, Cyril wasn't a fun character in the book, and I didn't really enjoy him. He was a little pompous. I suppose it was to make the film more succinct instead of close to 3 hours or something, since Cyril does a lot of stuff in the book. Then again, thinking about it, even in the book, most of his things were filler. So I guess they kept the best of the book. I mean, to put it nicely, he's boring. He collects bugs. He goes into priesthood, which could make for some interesting things, but it really just makes him a bit of a bully to his mom. Because he insists that since she's getting old, she must come and live with him. And it's very hard for him to understand that she doesn't want to. And yes, there is a time jump. Does progress. I will spoil that part of the story. It will actually show a time jump. Even the movie did this, where it was you see her when she was first recently widowed, and it goes until she's much older, and her child, single child in the movie, 2 children in the book, are grown, are grown. I mean, if I had to criticize anything about this film, it would be the slightly antiquated way of doing certain things on screen. The way the script flows isn't the same as it is for modern films, so us younger generations may not be as invested as intended in the story. Also, while I think this is an obvious thing that doesn't need to be said, it's in black and white. And as such, there's going to be a certain subsect that are not interested in it. Other than that, I found this a beautiful love story. Beautiful, wonderful rom-com. And just wanted to share my thoughts on the film and maybe convince the people to see it while I was at it. I mean, it's such a cute film, and you get to see the good sense of humor that shines through in some of these films that aren't out and out comedies. Like, I plan on doing some Marx Brothers, and I've got multiple Marx Brothers. Like, I can do Marx Brothers. I could probably do like a month of Marx Brothers easy. And I mean, I've got some Three Stooges and maybe even some Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton if I can get a hold of them. Like, I want to do the slapstick awesome comedy that the pratfalls, all of it. I want to do those. But this isn't one of those. This is you have to pay attention to know why you should be laughing. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's a little more intellectual, I guess, than people are expecting. But it's also not, because it still aims for the low blows at times, and Rex Harrison pulls off some of those low blows perfectly. Whew. That's spice. And good lord, it sounds so much more impressive to get that spice from Rex Harrison, Dr. Dolittle, the original Dr. Dolittle himself, than just about anybody else. Holy cow. Whatever the case, in my opinion, this is a movie worth watching. It is a movie worth remembering. It is a movie worth bringing out when you feel like watching something silly that may make you feel more than you intended to, but it still was a fun time. I am going to say this in every video. Do not be afraid to leave a comment requesting a review. As long as it's a feasible review and I can get a hold of a copy, I will do a review of it. If I cannot get a hold of a copy, I will let you know in a video. I will make a comment, probably at the end of whatever review I'm doing next. I will inform you if I can't do it. Now, after this movie, I'm planning on doing The Changeling. The Changeling. After that, I'm going to be doing The Birds. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. After that, however, I'm pretty much open, so I am more than capable of getting some requests, or, I could just start going down my list, seeing what I've got. Whatever the case may be, I am hoping that more people find these videos, more people learn to enjoy them, or are introduced to new movies that they didn't know exist, or had heard about them but never really got an opinion outside of old fogies. Because I'm sorry, but anyone who remembers a 1948 film from a while back, outside of someone who was raised by someone like that, is going to be from baby boomers or earlier. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to do this, because I got raised by baby boomers. And I'm proud of that, because there are certain things you get to learn being raised by a boomer that you wouldn't learn from other people, from other generations. So again, Ghost of Mrs. Muir. It was a very enjoyable film. I really loved it. I think anyone who wants to do any sort of inventive searching for movies or wants to give an old movie a try and maybe see what it's like, I think you'll really enjoy this, especially if you like rom-coms, because I'm sorry, the chemistry between the three leads, amazing. And it works so well. And I hope somebody finds it because of this. Until next time, guys, adieu.